judging from the presence here, there's a question bugging me. If you look at the topic, it's about information ethics. So either the people here understand what ethics is and have some ethics, or perhaps you need some ethics. So I'm not sure which way. But anyway, it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Coetzee Bester. His role and his association is on the board for you to read. And the topic as well, he's from the University of Pretoria, and we are very privileged to have him here this morning to talk about this important topic. I know most of you speak only technology, but in the changing world, this is a very serious topic, and with the abundance of technology, if information is spreading like wildfire, and it can also be very damaging if we don't guard ourselves and use it appropriately. So I'm very interested to hear what Coetzee has to say to us this morning. We look forward to it. Very welcome. After that, there will be one other session about artificial intelligence by Gary Hope. And then we have a photo session where we hope everybody will be present. We'll take a very large picture of ourselves, a selfie, and then tea. So that's the program for this morning. So please be seated quickly, and then we can hand over to Coetzee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Is this thing working well enough for everybody to hear? Thank you very much. Chairperson, if you take a selfie, don't send it to the hockey club if it was meant for your campus, please. You know, it will create some ethical challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by thanking the organizing team for presenting us an opportunity to discuss this matter with you. We're going to link on to what Dirk Schroeder from Greenbone said yesterday on the vulnerability of our digital system. And today we're going to focus a little bit on the role of humans in this vulnerability analysis. Later on, Gary Hope from Microsoft will talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. Maybe that is the only hope that humanity will have, is that the computers take over and think on our behalf, and we can just enjoy. When I put together this slide, I said to myself, we must start off by making sure that you fully understand the role of people like yourself against them, or us against you. I'm not sure. The presentation will give you an indication of who are them and who are us. But at the moment, there are too many people who say, you know, if you work in IT, you're a nerd. If you know anything more about a computer than any standard 6 or grade 8 child, then you're part of them. You know something that we don't know. And there's a division in this grouping of people. Now, if we look at the IT specialists, the IT managers, the IT consumers, you can call it digital role players, you can call it whatever you want. You get the idea of what I say is people in your position who were, and in some institutions are still, part of a separate system. You know, those are the people at office parties who either drink too much or they don't pitch, you know. They have a different mindset when other people are getting together. And what I'm going to do this morning is to engage you in a discussion where I want to plead with you to start taking control over a system that we together must make work. And what do I say when I say that? I mean that at the moment, and we'll come to some of these examples, we have a very good and a very well-structured IT system supporting the digital environment. Ask Intel, ask Microsoft, ask, well, Google is now in a little bit, they were clapped yesterday, but the IT environment, or what people like myself call from the 60s, the ICT environment, or the digital environment, is very, very well structured. Every now and then you listen to new technology that comes out, new hills that has been covered, new hurdles that has been kicked over. But on the other side, the people who are using these systems, not yourself, but the end customers, whatever you want to call them, they are not prepared for what is coming. And they are not prepared because of a number of things. First of all, let's call it the culture of the digital environment. I was joking with the chairperson, don't send your selfies to the wrong people. But that is just a lack of self-discipline on the side of people who do not really understand the impact of the digital environment and the digital technology on their personal lives. I think that woman understands it today, and I think she will admit that it was a huge blunder. But we must provide a safety net for, and excuse the term, stupidity like that within the framework where people don't understand this. And who are the people to support them? People who knock on the door and say, ma'am, sir, you lodged a complaint yesterday, I'm here to fix your stuff. You do not have the luxury anymore to fix the computer, but not the person using the computer. And that is why I say, if I talk to us this morning, please don't consider yourself to be one of them. Consider yourself to be part of the environment in which all of us must create discipline, structure, and let me call it behavior that will make the digital environment a positive experience for everybody. Even today, people are dying in motor cars. And we're trying to get that space happy and safe now for 110 years since Henry Ford built his first Ford motor car. Even today, we do not get it right. People are dying in motor cars today. Not because the motor car is something wrong with, but the driver. The driver and his relationship with Johnny Walker and all those other people. So what we have in mind here is, while we are struggling with that technology and nobody says there's a huge accident on the highway, let's go back to horses. Nobody says that. We already accepted that part of technology in our lives. Let's do the same with a digital environment. Nobody is going to say, let's go back to landlines, let's go back to, whatever postal services we have. Nobody says that. But it is our job to now make sure that the behavior, the human behavior in the digital arena, in the digital environment, creates a safe, happy space for everybody. Is that enough for background? Do you understand that you're not here to drink or to laugh? You're here to become part of the team. So when I talk about these, please keep in mind, wherever you're going to report to hereafter, you're going to be able to say that there must be one team. You think I will be able to manage this? So what I did was I gave you a little bit of an overview in the previous slide of what is information ethics. It's a little bit of understanding of human behavior, positive human behavior in the digital arena. If something is right or wrong, it's a legal matter. If something is good or bad, it's an ethical matter. Okay? Sending your photo to the wrong recipient is, if it's child pornography, it's right or wrong. You can go to jail for that. It's a legal matter. But whether it was good or bad, it's an ethical matter. Okay? So, what is information ethics and what is more or less digital behavior? If I try to put that word into this arena, we talk about the information life cycle with topics like access to information, accessibility of information or to information. Access to information is, do I have a computer? Yes. Do I have access to internet? Yes. That is access. Accessibility is when you have a cure for AIDS in Africa, but it's only published in Chinese. You understand? I have access, but it's not, I don't have accessibility to that. Okay, so that's more or less the difference between. Then matters like big data, artificial intelligence that Gary is going to handle hereafter. I'm very excited about that one. The one that I'm going to talk a little bit about today is cultural diversity, multilingualism. The other day we had a discussion at a UNESCO event where they indicated language on the internet. And the graphics was like, this is English, this is Chinese, the third language is Spanish. It's like this. People feel excluded from the digital environment, the internet and everything that goes with that because of language. And now they start fighting the system because it's American. And now people bring in their political stuff, their religious stuff and all the others and fighting this system. We talk about policies, we talk about privacy, we talk about personal safety, and we talk about cyber security. If you talk about these things, you talk about information ethics. It touches on human behavior, and therefore, now if we then say that culture, which is a platform for human behavior, you cannot say I do not have a culture, but I speak Zulu, or I speak Afrikaans, or I speak English, or I speak American. I see it's a different language than English. But I am talking the language which is provided for my, which is provided by my cultural background. Now that cultural background can be that of the Xhosa people, or the Pedi people, or the Northern Sothos, or the Southern Sothos, or the Eskimos, or the Japanese, or the Afrikaans-speaking people. It doesn't matter. It gives me that platform from where I communicate. What do I do in terms of my culture? It is what we like. Nobody has a culture that they don't like. You will not find the Khoisan people using the same clothes as the Eskimos. Why? Their climates are not the same. The Khoisan people tried the Eskimo clothing. It didn't work for them. Too much sun. The Eskimos tried the Bushman's clothing. Didn't work for them. You know, it was a little bit cold. So your culture is based on what you like, what we agree on, what we all approve to be our culture. And then there are those who use and misuse culture. In my culture, I can have more than one wife. Really? Are you a Zulu? No, I'm not a Zulu. Then go home. You know, you're not part of this culture. You understand? So people use and misuse the culture thing based on what they come into this new culture. This new, let's call it digital culture. Let's call it campus culture. Let's call it whatever you want, but where we all like, we all agree, we all approve. Then only it becomes part of the way that you adapt to your environment in creating the culture. Now, this was your lesson on Anthropology 101 this morning. Okay. Now, what do we want to, excuse, ek het nou van jou musiekje vergeet. I'm going to use a practical example. I will come back to culture in a moment's time. I want to use a practical example which indicates to you the benefits and the experience of well-meant, bad-managed digital environment. This colleague of ours at UWC wrote an article as recent as 23 June, referring to Southern Africa National Development Plan 2030. The Deputy Minister for the Department of Telecommunication and Postal Services, DTPS, also referred to that same plan the day after this, or yesterday as a matter of fact, if I'm right, where they say that the internet must be available to all. Now, I want you to understand what I said initially. We already adopted this IT, cell phones, laptops, tablets, call it whatever you want. We already decided we like it. We know there's some dangers, we know there's some problems, like the motor car, but we like it and we're not going to go back on this. So we expect of whoever, by the way, it's you, to make this thing work. I must feel comfortable, I must feel safe, I want to do what I want to do. That's why people still die in motor car accidents in 2017. But I want somebody else to solve this problem. And my presentation this morning is to say it must include the guy knocking on the door saying, I'm here to assist you to solve your IT problem. Now this plan brings a paperless Gauteng classroom initiative. And in the past 24 months, the Gauteng Department of Education, if you don't know where that is a little bit north of where you are, and it's the place with the toll gates, where the people don't pay the toll gates, you see. It's not part of our culture, you know. So in the past 24 months, in Gauteng rolled out 64,000 devices in 1,800 smart classrooms. Why? Because they say the use of technology in schools enhances teaching quality by giving both the teachers and the learners access to extensive learning materials through the use of smart boards and tablet devices. Now, you know a smart board and a tablet device is useless if it's not linked to the internet. You understand? So, and just to put it in perspective, 2018, grades 8 to 12 will be included. At the moment, it's grade 10 to 12. With this, there's nothing wrong. That is part of what I call your operational environment. Well structured, well equipped, neatly packaged, with all the people doing the software and the hardware and the link and the fiber optics and everything. But now this colleague came to this conclusion. She said there's only two facts that she picked up which can be generalized through all these classrooms. Look at that. One shared behavior in all these schools is pupils storing porn on their tablets. Ish, man. The second one is behavior is suddenly influenced by peers to watch these porns. She goes on in this article indicating that when the teacher leaves the classroom, they cluster together in small working groups watching porn. Now, I think the lady is a little bit generalizing, but at least that is what the article says. So, our solution is not a simplistic solution. Remember, we must create a cultural platform on which personal behavior can change to make the digital environment positive, safe, and usable. Okay, so now when you look at these solutions, the first one is that parents have to monitor the devices. Okay, so I have a PIN on my PIN security on my tablet, and if my parents wants to see it, they must just find the PIN first, you know. No, Mom, my PIN is my personal identification number. Okay. Maybe it's the same as our DSTV PG number. Now I ask some parents, do you use this PG thing at home? Yes. How do you install the PIN number? No, we call the children to do it. You understand? There's something in our behavior that is not sustaining the safety of the system. Okay, so she then goes on and say the parents must monitor the devices, the teachers must control the devices. Institutions have a role, and now I'm going to do marketing on this one and this one because I want you to understand where we go with this. And then lastly, the learners and the students, we must guide them towards personal ethics and self-discipline. What are those two? The third one, digital wellness toolkits, and by the way, these will be available, these slides will be made available to you if you want to use them. The digital wellness toolkit is a basic toolkit that we use, the Center for Information Ethics, developed with UNESCO to guide communities, secondary schools, and primary schools in this topic of information ethics. Back to the motor car example. If I ask you for the rule how to cross a road in South Africa, you get to the road, you look to the right, you look to the left, you look to the right again, and you cross the road. If it's safe, you cross the road slowly. Where did you learn that? At school? No, my grandmother taught me that in the creche They taught me that with a little three-wheeler. But that rule is still applicable today if you want to cross the road in your Ferrari. And the Mazda guy, you remember in Sandton yesterday, he's 6 million down the drain. They didn't apply that basic rule. So now we say, what are the basic rules in the digital environment? By the way, you are the ambassadors. So we put it in that digital wellness toolkit. And it's available on site, online. It's under Creative Commons. You can download it, you can use it as you wish. The next one for lecturers, the curriculum for teaching information ethics at universities. There's a complete program that if you remember to take it back to your campus, you say to them, listen, go online and find this thing because it's already there. The complete curriculum with the learning objectives, the outcomes, the time to be spent, the study material, the reading material, everything is there. You download it, you approve it, you implement it, it's for free. Because we need to make the digital environment as safe as possible. We're not there yet, like in the motor cars. 100 years later, some countries drive on the left-hand side of the road, some countries drive on the right-hand side of the road. In South Africa, we drive on both sides. You understand? So, please take note of this. The solution to what we're talking about this morning is not one guy doing one thing. It's all of us being aware of everything. And then we're going to be able to create a digital environment where people feel safe. What influences the institutional culture? And there I've put down a number of things that we can attend to. And I will give you a structure of culture in a moment's time. There are matters of safety. You call it digital safety, you call it cyber safety, you call it whatever you want to, but people in your environment must understand your safety is your concern and my concern, but your concern, and this is what we need to do. The policies. What are the policies of your institution? How do you create those policies? How do you make it available? Thirdly, the enjoyment. People must enjoy using the technology. Otherwise, they're not going to benefit from the digital environment. They mustn't feel threatened. They must enjoy. The training that is available. Please answer and just tell them I'll pay them next month. The values of what is part of your institution. How are we at our institution managing some of these issues? Who are responsible? What is the role of the Vice Chancellor and what is the role of the lecturer? What is the role of the IT guy coming knocking at my door to fix my stuff? The communication, what is the language that we talk to each other? On campus, how do we talk to each other? What are the acronyms that we use? It differs from campus to campus, there's no problem with that. But just make sure that people understand these acronyms. As you know, people like you like acronyms. You know, people like us, we don't understand those acronyms. But we must make sure that we communicate well. Resources and technology, research and new discoveries. From time to time, we have to bring the new development into the arena where the consumers dazzling around. Because if we don't tell them what it is, they will not know how to use it. Now sometimes some of the IT guys, they come in and they tell you about the dangers of this thing. You know, after that lecture, you want to throw away your cell phone, throw away your laptop and everything. Nobody must please steal my identity or my bank, the money in my bank account, you know. If you don't do this, you will die, you know, that kind of thing. The doom and gloom people. On the other side, we come in with all these exciting things. One day your degree will expire because you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And people become so afraid, you know, I'm not going to be fixed. Let me rather commit suicide today, you know, and then, or it's our job to bring the new excitement into people's lives. New developments, the social relations and the traditions. That's where we're back at the environment that will influence you. The rules and the discipline. People have different beliefs on different things. Look at that. People have different things that are beautiful to them and not beautiful to them. Some will like a blue computer, some a red one. Some like this on their screens, some like that on their screens. And we must make sure that people like what they do. And then lastly, the humor, that is part. Why do I say that? Because culture has a structure. Culture is not something that politicians use during elections to mobilize people and their group behavior. It's not that. Culture is not something that presidents use to mobilize their nations against other nations, or to withdraw from the European Union, if you want to. It's not a political thing. There's a structure to culture, and I'm not going to discuss this in full, but I want to refer to this so that you, in the end, can reflect the previous slide onto this slide and understand where it fits into. Culture has 4 quadrants, the one on existence, the one on construction, the one on development, and the one on social order or social interaction. By the way, you're back to your Anthropology 102 now, okay? So if people talk about a digital culture or a campus culture, you now understand what they say. You are now going to look at these pictures and say, let me go back to the previous slide. Is that how I do it? These behaviors, where do they fit into the system? They fit into the system in this structure. This is just the complete structure to indicate to you. Look at that. There's the enjoyment and the recreation. There's the safety. There's the politics and the policies and the stuff. There's the training. There's the communication, the values. There's the new knowledge, and there's the technology, and there's the rules and the discipline and the beliefs and the aesthetics and the humor. It's all there. So when we talk on our campus on stuff like culture, our culture, my culture, your culture, our new culture, we are all part of a new team. And that is the essence of the address this morning. Please consider yourself to be an IT leader, an IT specialist on all levels, not only the technology part, but also the human part. Because the vulnerability of our system is not on the technology part. It's on the human part. Whether that human is a hacker, whether that human is a dubious cultural fanatic, or whether that human is a well-meaning student wanting to do internet research without understanding copyright, or whether that individual is a house keeping mother in Schweizer-Reneke or wherever she's from. We are all part of this new environment that we must create to make sure that everybody is safe and happy and effective in this system. I put, for your knowledge, the 4 quadrants as separate slides so that you can, when you download it, have it a little bit bigger. And then, in conclusion, 2 slides left. In facilitating ethical human behavior within this new environment, we must have information on the laws, the politics, the governance, the policies of our campus, if we're a campus, of the faculty, if you're on faculty level, in my office, if I have an office, in my country, if I'm a political leader. Step 2, need for information on specific institutional cultures. Where were we? Where do we want to be? How do we grow going there? The third one, information on infrastructure and services available. People must know if they fool around with Donald Trump, he will tweet against them, you know. That's his work. The previous guy is called in the army. No army. I'm tweeting you to death. But the student on campus must understand that if you visit porn sites, we are going to catch you. Not today, not tomorrow, but the day thereafter, you will find yourself into deep trouble. It will unfortunately lead thereto that the students then immediately sells their computers at 50% discount at the closest shebeen. But that's beside the point, you know. It's in self-protection that they do that. So let them understand there's a system which is managed by the institution. And if they don't want to behave, there are rules and discipline that will catch up on them. Second to last point, information on available resources will watch you. Information on levels of human development. Make sure that they are in a position to get the information, to get the knowledge, to get the guidelines. And then the last one, the conclusions. In the digital environment, personal behavior and safety are not exclusive topics. Now, you can chase safety with enjoyment, with involvement, with whatever word you want to. It's the same thing. It's a new team that we are building, in which you are, as you sit here as the audience, key role players. Secondly, behavior and culture exist by way of many elements. It's not only language. It's not only communication. It's that wheel, the circle that I gave you. You can go back to that one and have an update for yourself. Preparing all role players must be holistically and integrated. To take people to say to them, this is a computer, this is how you switch it on, this is how you do research, but you don't teach them the other values, the other skills that they need, the rules, the discipline, the enjoyment, everything that goes with that. It's not holistically and integrated. We must make sure, as we sit in this group, that we take the bigger picture to the student, to the lecturer, to whoever is my customer. Because if I take the car, by the way, you know what happened with the Department of Basic Education when they learned about these porn thing in the classrooms? They said, this is a problem, I see. This is a problem. We have to have a solution for this problem. The children are now exposed to sex at a young age. You know what the DBE did? They started to distribute condoms. What a wonderful solution. Not very ethical, but wonderful, you know. I know many matric guys who will just love this solution. You understand? Now, if we talk about this integrated holistic solution, it's like a dad loving his teenage boy. So he buys himself or he buys the boy a Ferrari. And then he says, yeah, but he must be safe. Let me buy him a crash helmet as well. It doesn't make sense. It must be integrated holistically, designed. As your IT systems, so must be the human behavior. And you are the glue to bring them together. The last remark, the question is not about choose between the one and the other one, but to actively manage all of them together. I hope you enjoyed this and it can add value. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Coetzee. A very interesting talk, and I'm sure we will have some questions. We've got a few minutes. We started late, but we will catch up. Can we just see any questions from you? To me, it was a very valuable session. Just before Gary gets his turn, there's a short commercial I want to... Closer. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. So thank you very much. You certainly gave us a lot to think about, and it's a huge responsibility, and perhaps a responsibility that not all of us has understood up to now. So we are inclined to think about technology and technology as the magic solution, but I'm sure all of us think about technology of creating a better future, a more enjoyable life, a more productive life. But without ethical behavior, I don't think we'll reach it. It will not be better. So we certainly need what you said. Thank you very much. And while he was talking, I thought of just throwing in a quick commercial. I hope all of you know about Assorted and what we do and what we stand for. Anybody not know who Assorted is? Don't be ashamed. Well, I'll explain to you. Assorted is the forum of the senior IT directors, basically, of the whole country, all the universities. All 26 universities are members of Assorted as a non-profit company, an organization. We manage an annual budget of about 1.2 million. And with that, we organize conferences like these. We organize training. We organize, and that's where I want to put the emphasis. Every year, we have a leadership training event. We call it ALI, Assorted Leadership Institute. And there we get about 50 managers at middle level of all the IT departments of the whole country, all the universities. And up to now, for the past 5 years, we've had almost 300 of our colleagues at that level attending these leadership institutes. It's a full week of leadership training, and it's the aim is to prepare you for senior management at your university's IT department. And why I'm thinking of this is that we must bring this topic of ethical behavior into the curriculum, well, somehow. We must really do something about it. It's critical for our future. But let me just see quickly, how many of you have attended the ALI Institute? A show of hands. About 20 people of the 300. So 280 not here. But it's very valuable. Every year the feedback we get is really excellent. And people say that event has changed my career in IT. So I can recommend it. You must please, somewhere in future, try and attend it. Okay, with that, it's Gary's turn. Gary Ope, as you heard earlier, is interested in the promotion and the use of artificial intelligence. He's from Microsoft. And the picture on your screen is interesting.
It's getting there. There we go.
Yes, and from that picture you can gather it's about what's going on up here. So we look forward to your presentation, Gary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So I'm Gary Hope. I'm a cloud and data platform solution architect for Microsoft South Africa, and I work with some of the larger companies in our country in terms of delivering some of these capabilities that we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to try and put AI, artificial intelligence, in a context that allows people to have access to it. Microsoft's aspiration is to bring this set of technologies to everybody. And I'm hoping that today I'm going to be able to present to you our understanding of what that looks like so that you can take away and incorporate that into your operations. When I talk to people about AI, everybody comes up with a list of words that are associated with AI and what it means and how it impacts our lives. But invariably, the conversation comes to things that are autonomous, things that are capable of behaving on their own, and things that interact with us in a fluid and natural way, in a way that we would think of as human. And that's probably the most characteristics I get in common with everyone when I have those conversations. But let's unpack it a little bit in terms of where this technology comes from and what it actually means. So recently there was a World Economic Forum. A whole bunch of people get together in Davos and they talk about the state of the world and where the world is today and what it means and how it's changed and what we need to change in our behaviors to support the new world and what it looks like. And recently the conversation has turned to what is being called the fourth industrial revolution. And this is coming with much promise around what we're going to be able to do with the technologies that we have access to, much in the same way that the previous technologies have. In the 1700s, the introduction of steam and water power mechanized large parts of the world and allowed us to transform how we did manufacturing and transform people's lives through that. The division of labor and primarily electricity in the 1800s transformed how we interact with the world once again. And now we had the ability to extend operating hours beyond just when the sun was shining, but also further improve the mechanization of our lives. Things like washing machines became possible, fundamentally changing human behavior. And then in the 1900s, we had the introduction of computers and electronics, and that again created this revolution in terms of change. The introduction led to all of those things we were talking about today, iPads in schools being possible. But there's a new world that is coming, and it's this blurring of the physical world and this digital world that allows us to have a whole lot of new potential. And it is this concept upon which artificial intelligence is based. When we talk to leaders across industry, everyone talks about digital transformation in their business as being the key enabler for this technology. And that's because when we talk about those two vehicles that I showed you, that plane and that car, in order for us to make that artificially intelligent and behave independently, we need to digitize the experience that that vehicle has of the world. And the same thing applies to business. So they are prioritizing digital transformation and the disruptive nature of digital transformation much higher than things like global warming I don't know if we're allowed to even say global warming in a Trump world, but it is a priority for them. When we look back, you can see this directly reflected on business and our primary work with organizations in business. The state of a company in the 1920s was pretty much assured if you made it onto what's now called the S&P 500. It's an index that reflects the largest US businesses, and by most accounts is what indicates are the top performing businesses in that US economy, to the point of extinction in the next 15 years. When we think about this in terms of behavior, there are two things that businesses is attempting to adopt. The traditional leadership capabilities that we teach in business school transform business, and there's no question about it. Profitability and market share go up when you bring those behavioral characteristics into your business. But as you digitize your business, there's a direct impact on things like revenue. The magic quadrant is when we bring these things together and you get this massive shift in capability. When you have good quality leadership and good quality capability in the digital age, you can have this massive transformation in business. And it's this that is bringing to the fore the artificial intelligence capabilities that we're seeing adopted across industry. So when we talk to businesses, we're talking to them about being digitally transformed, and that can mean different things. But the most important question that we're asking businesses is, how are they digitally transforming their business model? What does it mean to transform your business model to something that is very different and based on this digital asset that you're now building within business? Most businesses are developing in all or one of these four quadrants, either engaging in customers. How do we build that interaction so we allow our business to engage in customers in a more meaningful way? And that applies to organizations across the board. Transforming products. How do we deliver things that are more meaningful through that digitization process? How do we optimize our operations so that we can have a more efficient business and run more profitably? And how do we enable our employees to deliver services that are different from our competitors in order to be able to survive? But ultimately, what that focuses on from all of those quadrants is customer outcomes. How do we change those customer outcomes to be something different and something new? From Davos, one of my favorite quotes is that one of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it does not change what we are doing, but it changes us in fundamental ways. That's coming from Charles Schwab. He founded the World Economic Forum, and he's a traditional economist. He's not airy-fairy futurist, and he's reflecting on it in this way. But why? Why is this like this? So it all starts for data. I work with data with the businesses that I work with, and we focus on gathering up that data and doing something different with it today than what we've done before. It is enabled through really three converging trends. Big data, the ability for us to gather up, manage, and store huge quantities of data, largely in real time. The ability for us to have compute, primarily through the cloud capabilities that organizations are delivering. And these computational algorithms that we now refer to as the intelligence engine of this capability. When we think about data, to put it into context, in 1985, the relevance of digital data was almost zero. My mother recently passed away, and I was going through some of her stuff. And I found an invoice. It was for shoes for myself from a large retailer in South Africa, and it was handwritten. Now, I don't consider myself old, but that was in my lifetime when stores wrote out invoices on paper, and there was probably someone who tallied it up at the end of the day, but that data was lost. When that was put into a total somewhere, the data was gone. Today, data is born digital. When you go to a checkout counter, you swipe your goods through that barcode reader, it is a digital record of what happened. It relates you and the product purchase, and it is digital from that point onward. It is born digital. And we can store that data because we have the capability, and we can process that data and extract information from it. And that is an example of this volume of data that is now this digital data. But there's also this connected data. We walk around with these phones. I run Android on my phone. If you go and have a look in your Google settings, there's a thing that says timeline in your maps. Go to your maps and say timeline. And click on there and see what this phone knows about where you were. It knows about where I was, not just the place, the geographic location, but it also infers things like the name of the place. I was at this restaurant. That information is this connected data that comes through this IoT and connected worlds. And we introduce it in many places, on our wrist, our fitness trackers, in our bathrooms, our scales, and many, many more ways we are integrating this digital data into our lives and creating an abundant source of the fuel that we're going to use to drive this digital age. When we think about the cloud, though, it fundamentally changes stuff. It allows us to do things quickly. I don't have to order stuff and have it deployed. I can do stuff on a whim and deploy it and get it up and running very, very fast. But I can also do it at a scale that is very different from what I can do if I did it in my basement or under my desk. I can do it at a scale that includes thousands of compute nodes, and I can do it with a different economic model. And for me, it's probably that economic model that changes fundamentally how we do stuff. Because I can choose to run 1,000 computers for 10 minutes and solve a problem that would have taken an organization months, years maybe, to solve on the computers that lived in their data center. And I can do that in a way that is so affordable that I could do it as an individual. I don't need to be a large organization with deep pockets and a big basement to store all my computers in. So it is this digital capability combined with these algorithms, the ability to do machine learning, deep learning, on this data at scale with that performance and economics that comes from the cloud that allows us to enable these scenarios like artificial intelligence in, let's use as an example, those vehicles that I showed you on the first slide. It is those algorithms that allow us to unlock it. But how do we do that? What are those things that we do, and what are we doing differently? Traditionally, we've had data, and we've been able to look through that data and get insights into that data. Most organizations have business intelligence, and they open up a dashboard and they look at their sales data, and they can tell you what that sales data has done last week, last month, last year. They can extrapolate a trend that probably helps them understand to some extent what it does in the future. Mostly it's not built on a model that is built on machine learning. Mostly today it is an extrapolation of those numbers through human intervention. We take those insights and we infer something using humans to do that. When we move that inference to machines and allow those machines to predict what's going to happen in the future, or better understand what happened in the past through using those mathematical models, we can directly enable action to be taken. So the machine can now make a decision, and based on that decision, take an action. And that is fundamentally a transformed artificial intelligence base for building a new business. There are many businesses where this has been successful, but one of the ones that I kind of think of as relatively staid is manufacturing. The manufacturing industries, like much of organizations that we work with, have a large amount of technology in them, but have not managed to transform their business in a lot of ways. They've stuck in this manufacturing. We build stuff and we sell it and we give it to other people. And here's an organization that is a manufacturer. Rolls-Royce manufactures engines. They manufacture engines for those airplanes that some of us flew on to get here. And it's those engines that they sold with maintenance contracts to customers. And their model was, we sell it to you for a certain amount of money, and you work out how the profitability of that works for you or you as an organization. Rolls-Royce transformed its business fundamentally through the use of digitization of this very mechanical asset. So that's a business, a traditional manufacturing business, that has changed its business model. It sold engines. Today, it sells thrust hours. It sells to those airlines the ability to propel that airliner forward efficiently. And they build a business model that takes over from that point onwards. That is a fundamental change in the business model, and that's the types of change that this ability to learn and predict creates. I think to a large extent that video underplays that ability to change those models when they say things like, we can predict how much fuel we'll use. That is a fundamental ability to ingest that information, process it, understand it, and change a business outcome. Let me get rid of that. So we have this ability to take this data in, process it, and then have a look at what the result of that is in terms of actions. But when we enable these models, we start doing something different. We have spent a lot of time, most of us in this room, learning how to use technology. What's happening now in this new revolution is the technology is learning how to be helpful to us, how to engage with us based on these models. And basically, the data that we feed into it allows it to do things that are fundamentally different. So if I interact with a machine today, I can do it with rich text. I can say, show me the projected sales for today. I don't have to open up a spreadsheet and drag those information on myself. It can give me a result, fairly straightforward, but it can also start projecting into the future and say, there's an expected increase in sales. Great, sales managers celebrate, but we are going to run out of stock in order for us to be able to fulfill those sales. And take action, or at least recommend action for human intervention to say, here we go, can I place you an order? And I can interact with that and then change context completely and move on to something else completely different. It's a fluid interaction that gives me the feeling that there's someone behind that talking to me and interacting with me in a meaningful way using a natural language interface. And that's a fundamentally clear characteristic when I have conversations, what people see as artificial intelligence. We as Microsoft build some systems to do that, and I'll show you some of the capability quickly now. But we mostly build building blocks, and those building blocks are for you to build the applications on top of that enable those characteristics in your business. Those cognitive services that allow the machine to understand what human behavior is. And they come in a bunch of different versions, focusing on vision and speech and language, those types of human interaction things primarily, where we can understand who's standing in front of me. Is there a face there? Can I recognize who that face is? Or I can understand that someone is talking to me and be able to translate text back to language or language back to text in a verbal sense. To be able to understand the structure of the language so I can extract sentiment or even understand intent and meaning from that so that I can stitch together applications to build the solution. So let me quickly show you what's involved in building a quick bot, the thing that we think of as the thing we would interact with in an artificial world. So if I go to the UCT website, there's a humanities Q&A. It describes the frequently asked questions that someone comes along who wants to register for a humanities course. And what we can do is we can take that very quickly, extract that information, and build it into an experience that is interactive. We have a site that is called the Q&A Maker. If you go to qnamaker.ai, it is a service that's available to anyone. And I'm going to call it UCT questions. Oops. And I'm going to provide this maker site with the URL from that frequently asked questions. And it could be any site, or it could be a list, or it could be many sites, or it could just be files that contain lists of questions and answers that people typically ask. And I can now click Create. And what it will go do is gather up the information from that site, so it'll scrape all the information off that site. It'll construct a knowledge base that it is going to use to answer questions for me. It'll build it into something that is meaningful, so it extracts the questions and answers. And if I go and test this and I say, here's the experience, that's a demo experience. Hi there. It'll say hello. Let's go and have a look at what types of questions are on the site. What does the faculty offer? So if I ask a question, what's on offer? I didn't ask the question exactly as it understood it. It extracted the intent from the question that was there before and matched my intent to that and gave me the answer from that, the question. In this case, we built it, let's be honest, we built it in 20 seconds. There's no sophistication in the answers. It's giving the answers as they are from the site. Those are copy and paste answers. But I can literally build an interactive experiences. How do I pay fees? You don't. Fees must go away. What? So I can have now a natural interaction with the site that is based off of those questions. And it literally took me 30 seconds. But I can publish this, and it's a knowledge base that I can now consume from my web app, from my Skype account, where I can have these bots that act as agents that avoid me having to have people picking up the phone and answering those frequently asked questions. And that is what most businesses do today, is they have people answering the phone to answer those very same questions. And we could make this speech. It doesn't have to be text. From those same APIs, we've basically just stitched them together in a way that allows us to deliver that experience very, very quickly. But this is a really crude example of what we can do. Because we have a supercomputer at our disposal, we could do that on a relatively low compute power. But when we think about Azure and the Microsoft Cloud as this AI supercomputer that consists of all of these CPUs that I can spin up and use for a limited amount of time and a limited amount of cost, and when I combine them with some kind of more geeky technology like the GPUs that run your gaming stations or field programmable gate arrays, I can get a really high-class supercomputer that can process these algorithms for cents. So this GPU technology, I'm a bit of a geek myself. This stuff outperforms the average CPU that's in your laptop or on your servers many-fold. 4 servers, 1 Tesla card, 1 GPU. I can get 3 or 4 times the performance on standard data mining or research-based algorithms that are compute-intensive in the numerical space, and most of them are compute-intensive in the numerical space. In some cases, I can get more than 8 times that performance off a single card for some of the algorithms. So it is incredibly powerful to be able to use that technology, and that technology is now available for hire in our data centers. But there's new technology coming that's going to displace that. Who's heard of field programmable gate arrays? No one. Field programmable gate arrays allow us to, instead of running code on a CPU that is a general purpose computational unit that runs compute code, we can then run that instead on electrons at the electronic level. We can have a bunch of gates configured to emulate what that code is. And that gives me incredible performance. But I also want to reflect on the fact that it's not all happiness in the world of AI. As complexity and data sizes go up and problems complexity gets more and more massive, we end up in these spaces where we have to make some of those ethical decisions that we're talking about. If computers can ingest data massively and process against that data in real time, they can make decisions that are very different from human decisions. And let's talk about that car. That car that we as humans keep crashing is a problem. We could automate that problem away. When we automate that problem away, the computer in that car will be able to understand the environment far more than we would. It would probably allow us to avoid a vast amount of the collisions that we're having today. But it also introduces a new problem. It will be able to understand the environment far better than we do today, and it will have to make decisions, or has the capability of making decisions that are far better than ours. How far do we hold that computer accountable for making those decisions? And those are interesting questions, because the computer could understand that this vehicle traveling down the road is going to be involved in an accident, an unavoidable accident, but now need to make decisions around how many people get injured based on its understanding, its enhanced understanding of the world around it. When you ask people, they will say that that computer should minimize the loss of life. It is a standard thing. Do you guys agree? We should minimize the loss of life in that vehicle. Would you buy a vehicle that minimizes the loss of life if that life that it chose was yours as the owner of that vehicle? No. That's a pretty unanimous decision. If you go and ask anyone, they agree. Absolutely, we must minimize the loss of life. But if I buy a car, that car has to protect me because I bought it. We have some challenges in this space, and mostly they're not technological. They live far more in this ethics world. Very interesting problems. There's also some real problems that I see kind of on a personal level with the stuff. Targeted advertising, the tweets that come to my phone with no kind of initiation in terms of consciously choosing stuff, is that we get bombarded with this information that is very focused and very targeted. And we can end up living in this bubble that we create around our environment. I've been reading a book by Carl Newport. I don't completely agree with a lot of the stuff that he says, but there is a good reflection on our ability to separate out all of that stuff, or separate ourselves out from all of that stuff, in order to be able to do that deep and meaningful work. But I'll close with this. It is one of my favorite statements made by Arthur C. Clarke. It says, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. You judge for yourself. If the difference between magic and science is only time, I think the time for AI is now, and those capabilities unlock that for everyone. I hope you enjoyed that.
Thank you very much, Gary. That was fantastic. Are there any questions? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Considering that we are for the AI technology, I'm just a little bit concerned about the growth, exponential growth of AI. So what I'm thinking is, what I wanted to ask is what do you think will we as humans do when artificial intelligence will be doing everything for us?
I think that's a very good question, and I think there are some very clever people out there asking exactly that question. Elon Musk and a bunch of digital advisors have got together and started thinking about what that means for us as a society, and how do we fit into a society where we give away those menial tasks, those automated tasks that can be done. And I think for me, we become more creative. I think that is the answer for me. We focus on our ability to add value to that ecosystem rather than fighting with it for those menial tasks that it's trying to take away from us. But we do need to reflect on that as a society as a whole, because there's a lot of people that don't have access and don't have accessibility into that technology pool to be able to leverage that stuff and add their creativity into that world. It is a very good question, and a lot of people are thinking about it. Yeah.
May I add to that?
Yeah.
You will find that on that circle, one of the existence activities is that of relaxation. Now, previously, women walked 6 hours a day to fetch water. If you put in a tap in a house, she saves 6 hours. What does she do with that time? And then we get to the point where we say, as humanity, what are we doing with our free time? That is why you get Netflix and you get a lot of other stuff that captures your time. Because human beings, if they are not kept busy, they become naughty. You understand? Is that a generalization, or is it only us politicians doing that? You know? So the fact of the matter is, it's a very good question. And while they are creating the problems, we must solve it. And in Africa, we have two ways. The one is the whole of East Coast Africa is developing in one huge holiday resort. Is that a good remark to make? And we are going to have more relaxed time if we do not have to carry the water into our villages. Very good question.
But it does involve some choices, right? The choices that what we use our spare time for can be those things, that Twitter storm that we spend ourselves in that bubble, or the meaningful work that we transform our life. And we can make some of those choices ourselves. Yeah.
Okay, what about security threats? If you check towards the data that you're capturing, going back to your slide about Cortana, now it's placing an order for $3 billion worth of parts, and you only need a quarter of that. A virus infection occurred, and it's now ordering on behalf of you.
Yep. Those are real things that we have to think about. Those are processes and procedures that we need inside our organization to protect ourselves. The traditional stuff that we have to do that may not actually even be sufficient to cater for those types of intrusions, where we have that knowledge base, that ability for that computer to make that decision becoming corrupted by some external force. Those are going to be new ventures that we're going to have to explore in order to understand how to protect some of that.
Yeah, your text engine, the text interpretation
Yes.
and FAQ system, that's great as long as you can master the English language.
Yes.
Our clients tend to use slang because they're so used to WhatsApp, for example.
Yes.
So how does that cater for language variations as well as native language like Xhosa, Zulu, and so on?
So language recognition, and there was reference made to that earlier, kind of lives in the population of English or Chinese today as the primary language where most of these technologies are developed. But even in those languages, things like slang or accent, if you're talking about verbal communication, skew our ability as computer scientists to be able to understand that information that comes in. But the algorithms that we put in place are there to learn, not just to be able to have coded statically a relationship between a word and the understanding that we take from that word. So the hope is that the algorithms will learn, and they do. And you can have a look at things. One of the services that we have is something called sentiment extraction. And you can have words that are the same word in different contexts that have completely the opposite meaning. We can have sarcasm, as example, in our tweets. We can have, and I'm trying to think of a perfect word that has those two meanings, and it escapes me for the moment. But we can have words that have two meanings. And these engines are clever enough to take the context and understand whether that was meant to be literal or meant to be sarcastic at this point. We're not perfect, and we will evolve, but those are things that we're working on. And multiple languages in terms of real languages, spoken languages, we're working on that problem as well. Again, we're not perfect, but if you go and have a look at the Microsoft Translate site, or you have a look, more importantly, at Skype Translate, you can see efforts that we've made to translate stuff in a seamless and fluid way actually coming to reality. I was recently in China. I took a photo of something that I thought was spaghetti and meatballs, and it couldn't decide what it was, the thing that I was taking a photo of, the Chinese word that I was taking a photo of. So it gave me both potential options. The one was brain, and the other one was lung. So I didn't have either, but we are trying to solve some of those problems. Any other questions? I'll be around if you want to chat, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Thank you very much, Gary. That was fantastic. Folks, we're running a little bit late, but I'm sure you would agree with me that it was worth it. I'm going to just do a couple of announcements in no particular order, and then we're going to head off for photographs. I just want to greet our YouTube people. We've had 140 people watching yesterday, and this morning we had about 25, so obviously people are sleeping a little bit late. But anyway, so good morning to you, and thank you for watching. Then I just want to announce 3 program changes. So we will not be having the project management SIG meeting, inaugural meeting, so that's cancelled, unfortunately. The session at 14:05, there's a spelling error. It should read, I'll just take my glasses off for this age. It should read using top-down approach instead of a drop-down approach. I apologize for that. And then at 15:45, the slot where Mishwal was going to be presenting, unfortunately, he's ill, so Musa will be presenting on growth and demand in the classroom technology. So that's been replaced. Right, so